Another Tuesday has come and gone, and today is Hard Hat the CEO Day with Chris G here, and I've got Kevin in the studio. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Kevin, I was thinking, usually you give me some ideas, and I was thinking maybe I come up with one today, is that we talk about some sales.
I
That's the
love that.
lifeblood. Yeah.
I love that.
Um,
Yeah.
the old chicken or the egg thing, they said, well, sales is the most important thing. And I'm not going to argue that discussion, but I can tell you what, if you don't have sales, there's no reason to do anything because you don't have the money to do what you want to do.
If you don't have sales,
So,
you don't have much,
yeah,
unfortunately.
that's
So
true.
I think it's one of those things where a lot of people start in this space because they are either really good at one facet of it or they enjoy it a lot or family business or whatever it is. And I think sometimes we learn a little bit too late how important sales is. So I think it's a really good topic.
I was very blessed. I guess in high school, I worked for a TV appliance store, and had a guy come in, and one of the salesmen, one of the vendors, come in, and he taught me a lot of things about selling Magnavox TVs. And I'm not sure if they make Magnavox anymore. I think Sylvania bought them out, and I think Philips bought some. It doesn't matter, but the point is, it's been a long time since we talked about some sales and what I got training in, and I always had training since then. And you're always a salesperson, whether you think you are or not, especially as a business owner. But one of the things, you know, we were talking about earlier, right before we started recording, we were talking about one of the things this a guy told me is that always find out what the person has in mind. And what I mean by that is, what are they going to do with it? I tell my son-in-law when he gets a bid for a building, what's their plans for it? Always find that out because, you know, we work with a lot of farmers, for example, and they might want a 10-foot walls. Well, a 10-foot wall for farmers not really productive because their tractors are usually 10 foot tall. So you need to have, you got to know what they're having in mind.
Mm.
And then if something happens, you can make recommendations or so forth. You want obviously to put yourself as the expert because well, you should be because you know more than they do. And that kind of leads into the sales process too. Um, I love selling houses to people who have never built a house, and that's not that they haven't lived in a house. Obviously, everybody's lived in a house, but not that's their first. They don't. They come to me and we want to bid for a house. Well, honey, I need some plans. I guess we need to know what you're wanting and what you're going to do, and I can then tell you how much it's going to cost. And I can help you set that up, and I love getting plans out for people. I looked at a lot of them over the years and get them in contact with somebody who can create the plan for them, get their ideas on paper. And but it's important to walk through. And sometimes I even help talk to the plan drawer first. I say, hey, here's what they want. And give you a little heads up. Here's what I'm thinking, and so forth. And that makes it a lot easier for the customer. And that helps your sales because now they're relying on you to take their ideas and then give them a number to get their dream home, for example.
Mm-mm-mm.
So,
What's your what's your sales philosophy? So mine is add more value than anybody else, and eventually the person, if and when they're ready, will come to you. What's Obviously it's different. You can only add so much value
yeah.
before you build something.
And you mean when somebody actually comes, once you've got the lead,
Yeah.
um, listen more than you talk. And I know that sounds cliche, and maybe it is, but that's the truth. You let them do the talking, and then you'll find ways to you guide the conversation with the questions, but you still listen to your answers. Does that make it's almost like podcast? You ask a question, then you got to listen.
Yeah.
Um, what you find out what they really want as far as, and then you guide them in a way that you get the information you need to provide them the answer. And that's kind of I don't know, it sounds silly, but that's the truth.
Mm.
As far as you got to know, it's like, okay, and what do you have plans? Do you have any kid? What it is it? And you get them talking about it. And that's on a house, but on a building too. I mean, I do a lot of horse stables, and horse stables have dreams, stuff they've watched and seen, and they'll ask me. I'm thinking I'm not the horse person. Now I grew up with horses, and I do have horses, and I've done a lot of stables, and I'll give them ideas, and then sometimes they'll give me ideas, and I'm not. Sometimes you can't talk them out of it, and I'm not. That's not my job to talk them out of their idea. Now, if it's something just unbelievable. I'll tell them, it's like, maybe you want to do it this way, or here's how somebody else did it. Tell stories and use your clients, your past clients, and that helps sales too, because that
Yeah.
obviously in their mind they're thinking, well, he's worked with so many people and they've done that and they've done this. So I can always, maybe that's not the best way to do it, and I'll suggest that. So I can still get to what you want. It says, let's do it this way instead. And make suggestions, and then suggestions let people feel like they're part of the solution.
Mm.
And that's a big part. We talk about ways of sales, personal relationships or sales. And I think, was it a couple weeks ago, you and I were talking about the portfolio of people.
Yep.
Portfolio of pictures are just as important, and probably more important than the portfolio of people, because that gives you proof. And that lets people realize that he is the guy. He's doing a lot of work, and that's who I want to do mine. And I had we built a barn. Well, I say it's barn. It was a man cave, but a nice man cave. Don't get me wrong. And he's referred us several times, which is awesome. And his father-in-law called a couple weeks ago, and he said, I'm trying to think of his name, Bradley. He said, Bradley, you built Bradley a barn. I was like, yes. And he likes you. And we did a couple things for Bradley. He goes, you're going to build my house. Okay. And it wasn't really a question of money. And I found out that money is not really the issue for them. It's what they want and where they want it. And they have plenty of liquidity to do what they want. And then we get there and he's adding more stuff. And it's like, okay, we'll do it. But it wasn't a question of, we didn't talk about price. We didn't talk about, really didn't really talk about quality. I mean, he knows what we do. We talked about, how can this be done? Like, okay. Yeah. And can you do this? Well, sure. And that's how I do it and explain it, and those type of sales are awesome. You know what I mean?
Of course I do. Yes, those are really awesome.
Yeah, it's like, okay. And you get clients like that. Phil called, and I know hope Phil ain't listening. But anyway, I was talking to somebody and they said, you know what the P in Phil stands for? I said, no. They said particular. I said, really? And Phil will tell you he's pretty particular. He was a bridge builder for years. And when you build bridges, you got to get in the spec, because the government's going to come check it before they let people drive on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, Chris, this is hard to believe, but I only have one question. I said, okay. He took me upstairs. He showed me something. I said, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. He said, and I explained why. He said, okay. He goes, that's the only thing I have. He goes, I don't think I've ever worked with anybody that I didn't have more than one thing to, not necessarily complain about, but point out. It's like, well, that's great, Phil. And he goes, I already told my neighbor down the road, and they're going to be calling you. Make it happen. Those type of things are, anyway, I get a little sidetracked, a little excited there.
It's good. It's good.
Relationship selling is awesome.
I think people think sales is like the one-on-one, I have to say the right thing in order to influence this person in the right direction. And I think there's just way more to sales than that. So I think that's a really good tangent, for lack of better phrasing.
Something that does help with sales that people don't really think about is getting the client the money. To get them approved, get them pre-approved, offer financing to them, whatever it is, because sometimes that is the hurdle. And I love it when people say, well, I haven't talked to the bank yet. I say, don't worry about it. I'll get you a loan. And that is not the issue, except they're not going to give you a loan until we have a plan. And that is, all banks are that way. And they have to be. Mm-hmm. And the long story short is it's the bank's property until you pay for it. So they want to know what they're going to invest their money in. So, and I have access to a lot of bankers. Fortunately, my dad was a retired banker, and I know how they think and what they need. So we just, here's what they need. We're going to get it to them. And sometimes you got to help them with a budget. So in your mind, have an idea how the banks work, or in this case, you always throw out that, now we're assuming you got good credit. And when you're talking to people like that, everybody's like, oh yeah, we got, okay, fine. And sometimes I even ask myself, now, is there going to be anything surprising when we give this to the bank? And sometimes the truth comes out, but that's okay. And it's okay. There's programs out there. If you've got a job and the numbers make sense, we can get you in a house. That's not an issue. And that makes people so excited. And then that's kind of covers the fear factor. You've covered their pain point. And that's a big one you got to look at. What's their pain point? Not everybody's about money. Like the gentleman I was mentioning earlier, it was about, this is what I want. Can you make that happen? That was his pain point. Money wasn't the issue. But yeah, you want a bigger deck? Yeah, we can take that one down. It needs to be torn down anyway. Boom, make it happen. So those are kind of important things, I believe. Oh, I got a note here because I had an idea what we were talking about today, and leverage digital marketing. And we talk, and it probably comes up every other episode. It's so important.
It's important, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, use those pictures, use those people, tag people. The more information that a potential client can glean will make your sales so much easier, because sometimes they just don't want to ask the question to you. They're embarrassed, or they rather just, they don't feel the pressure, whether you're not being a hard salesman or not. They just feel like, I'm going into a negotiation, and they lock up. So if they can get that information ahead of time and feel like they're knowledgeable about you, what's going on, this person said this about you, they've got a 5-star rating on Google, whatever it is, use all that stuff to your advantage and make your sales process so much easier in the long run.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What's the worst sales advice you've ever been given? I've heard a lot. That's why I ask.
To me, it was you got to touch somebody 7 times. That used to be the number, and I've been told now it's 10. I've heard it's 20. That's because everybody's touching them so much in different ways, and I don't mean physically touching them. That's but I mean contact them via email, letter in the mail, text, and so forth. And I think to some extent, while that's very important, you got to give some people some room to breathe. And contact them too much, in my opinion. You can bug a person just as much as you can remind them.
Yeah.
Now, you have to be leery of your competition. You got to be, if you get in a quote, be prompt on your quoting, get back to them in time. But give them time to think. Well, sometimes they appreciate that just as much. And use a CRM or your calendar, whatever it is, the customer relations management software, but whatever it is, set yourself reminders, follow up them people. And then especially the ones that say, I'm not ready to build right now, or they're just asking questions, and put a reminder in to contact them, put them in the email drip campaign, whatever it is. But an email drip campaign, you can do it daily, and your people opt out. Do it maybe weekly, depending on what your campaign is. Don't get me wrong, but depending on your cycle, and that's things you got to learn. But keep yourself in front of them so you're at, they call it top of mind. So you're always being, if they think about who's going to build a house, they think of Chris G. But if they think you want that, but you don't want to be annoyed. And I think that's probably the worst. I only did that a long time ago. It's like, I'm going to leave these people alone. And they told me, at least I do. I like to believe people are telling me the truth. And if they're not ready, they're not ready. Like, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Is it okay to follow? And I do this. Is it okay to follow up in a couple months? Yeah. Okay. And you might put something and I'm old school, we used to put postcards in the mail. I mean, this is before even computers are going, and you pick up the phone, you make cold calls and stuff, and directories on a big ass thick book. Anyway, but all that type of stuff does make a difference, and keep in front of them. Just don't annoy them.
Yeah, I think you can annoy a maybe to a no as fast as you can annoy a maybe to a yes.
I get frustrated. I've got a call. It's cold calls. People dial you and they text you all the time, and sometimes I answer them. And it was about some software or something like that. And I said, quite honestly, I wasn't ready. And I said, I'm in the midst of hiring a new office manager. I said, tell you what, call me back in June. This was last month. I said, call me back in June. So that person, because I'm going to hire them pretty soon, but they're not going to have time to deal with you either. Call them back in June. We'll be more apt to, talk about that. And I'll be damned that somebody shouldn't call me. Excuse me. I guess it's my podcast. I can cuss what I want. That somebody called me a week later. And I said, I told you do not contact me until June. And I meant it. Oh, okay. It's like, I don't know if he's going to call me back or not, but what part did he not understand?
Yeah.
And, matter of fact, I think I blocked him. Like, you done lost your turn. You didn't listen to what I said. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. But I think that's the hard part is so many people are taught that's how you do it in sales. You just follow up. That has an expiration date too. You can follow up too much for sure.
Yeah, I mean, follow up is very important, and I'm not saying don't, but you just got to use common sense.
Yeah, that you do.
So what he could have done, instead of calling me the following week, he could have sent me an email. Hey, thanks for talking last week. I know you're going to reiterate what we talked about. Fine. I probably would have said, yep. At least he listened to me, and he's doing his job. And I thought, I was in sales, and that's what I got to do, and so forth. Oh, look here. It's a new guest. Cohen, can I talk to you a little bit better? All right. Wave everybody. All right. Go on back. That's my grandson. See, I get to watch my grandchildren because I'm a CEO and get to do what I want to do when I want to do it.
That's right.
And then I got to feed them. I don't know. I thought that was grandma's job, but I guess not.
No, that comes with a job.
Anyway, we were talking about sales from. I got sidetracked.
No worries.
Well, I guess I'll just let him sit up here. Why not? He'll be famous. I was going to talk about on the sales part, selling the benefits. That's another advantage too. And that kind of goes back to your value thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
And showing them, if a person, they'll ask me a question and I'll say, I personally don't like it. And I just tell them that. It's like, you can do what you want to do at your house. Here's what I don't like about it. But if you're wanting, maybe do it this way, or even spend a little more money, and here's the value in it, or it'll last longer, or someday we're going to be so old that we don't care, and your grandkids or your kids are going to deal with the house themselves, or whatever it is. But I make those suggestions, and you show them the benefit, and let them make the decision, because that's important, and they'll know if they want to spend the money or not. It's really an investment in multiple ways.
Well, I think it's important too to understand that not everybody values what you value in the same way. So even the example of you'll have somebody come to you and say, it's not about the money. And I know for me, it's always, what do you mean it's not about the money? It's got to be about the money. No, for some people it's not. So I think that's important to understand that your beliefs aren't everybody's beliefs either.
Well, when I went to a place, job site. I guess it was cold, and I was outside in the cold. But we were talking about where they put their septic system at. And I looked at the place and made sense to me. I said, "Well, you could put that over there." And they said no, and they weren't upset about it. But I have a plan for that. And what I should have said was, "Where do you think where would you like to have the septic system at?" And I could have told them yes or no, it would work there. And their alternative was just fine. It just the way the land laid. And so maybe I guess I did learn, ask the question instead of assuming that's where it needs to go, type thing. They have plans. They have looked at that property longer than you have, and they have in their mind, that's why they bought it. They envisioned something, and your goal is to get that envisionment out of them and then give them pricing or whatever it is to make it happen for them.
Yeah.
You're fulfilling their dream.
That's the goal. Yeah, even if you went in with a question of what's the most important for you, like flexibility on the design, the price, the time, and there's a lot of questions will give you the answers that you need to figure out whether or not it's going to work for sure.
Mentioning time, contractors, they'll ask you, at least the homeowners, do you have enough time in your schedule? That's a good one. I said, well, depends on what kind of timeline you're looking for, because that makes a difference. And yeah, I'm busy. And if I'm not busy, then if you find a contractor is not busy, then he might not be the person for you, because nobody else wants him either.
Yeah.
So that's important to remember. That's always a good way to sell it too. It's like, yeah, I'm busy. I want to be busy, but we'll accommodate you any way we can. But I don't have enough information to give you an idea what kind of schedule I'm in. I said, sometimes I'll say, especially if it's easier here in Missouri when it's in the fall, it's cold. We're not going to pour concrete till the fall, spring anyway. Okay. Or I'm 3 months out. But it's going to take you at least 30 to 45 days just to get all this other stuff taken care of. Oh, you're right. I was like, yeah. And the best part is, you tell me yes, I'm going to go ahead and get in that schedule and get you a slot. And that way I'm not guaranteeing anything. So I'll call my subs all the time and say, listen, I got this contract. I just want you to put me a spot. I'm guessing about this much time. I got your name on it, and we can always move it around when we get closer. It's like, cool. And that's, communication when it comes to being a contractor or a business owner or in sales. Communication is the big key, and that can just happen. And tell them, don't be, I guess, the last episode we talked about, just tell them everything. Just tell them, hey, I'm 3 months out, but I'm 3 months out because I'm good and I've got a lot of customers. So we're going to make it work for you. And what kind of timeline? What's your constraints? What do I have to overcome? Find out those constraints and work towards making it happen.
What would the tangible takeaway be? The hard hat to CEO takeaway from this episode?
Listen more than you talk. Yeah, that's really comes down to the whole conversation. Really, I mean, we've talked a lot of different things, but when it comes down to it, when you're talking, you're asking a question, and then you listen to the answer, and it leads to probably the next question.
It's like a podcast, like you said.
It is just like a podcast.
It's like a podcast. All right, right on. Cool.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you again. This has been great. And if you guys like what we've talked about and want to discuss further with me things about sales or scheduling or whatever, especially being a hard hat to CEO, follow the link in the below in the show notes. Click on that and set up a time with me, and we will make that happen. Kevin, thank you for today.
Always, buddy.
All right, man. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.